This starts out just with the finished piece with the beads simulated on the outside edge. And they have a little bit of a highlight on either side of it just by using a segment in Photoshop that does that. So this is just showing you a previous one, just has the lettering with the effects on it. It has a background of blue and the beads on top of it on 3 separate layers. So in Photoshop it makes it a little bit easier to work with that. So all you do is just click the text tool, start with some text. The keystrokes for expanding it and scaling it are a little different, but you can skew it a little if you want to follow the same concept of it, just holding the Command key on the middle handle once the text is expanded, and then just showing the different styles. So we'll get to the styles of the text once it's there, but just make a selection. It's expanding it to 5, but I want a little bit larger so it would fit the size of the brush. Then make a new layer, and you're going to select the Brushes panel, and this allows you to change the size of the brush, the softness or hardness of the edges of the brush. And when you come on the side, I'll just drag it across to make that piece. But first, let's make this selection into a path and just give it a title, and then just deselect it so you don't inadvertently take it off. But now when you draw the brush, you can see that the beads or the circles that are going to become the beads go right next to each other, and that's done in the spacing under the Brushes palette. So this is just setting this up, and then you have a number of options, but just for that first one we'll tackle that. So you go to the Paths palette, click on the stroke. I filled it with the foreground color of white, and now when you double click to get the layer styles, this is where you're going to expand the bevel and emboss. And you can just experiment with it to get the style or look that you like. The contour shows how it's shaded over the surface of it and builds that kind of a depth to it. So it has a couple of styles. You can zoom in or out while it's still selected and just modify what you think looks good to get your shape of those beads going around that rim. And that'll be on bevel and emboss, so you can expand it, change it, and try to experiment with all the different pieces. They also highlight an inner shadow, which is on that same particular shape there, so it gives you that style for it. And kind of changing the color of the letters, so just grabbing a color and using Option Delete or Command Delete, and that'll fill it with a foreground or background color. And then you can modify the bevel and emboss on this as well. So it's trying to get you to kind of experiment with it while this layer styles is open. You can still modify the image, or zoom in or out, and again trying to get that look to it. And again, going back into the effects. If you turn them all off, you can reset it too if you need to, just by holding the Option key, and it'll click on File for resetting that. So I just put a new layer on top for highlights, and I'm going to make a brush. You don't really have a highlight brush. You can download some, but I'll just quickly show you how to make one. Just taking the polygon tool right here and just kind of clicking a star shape. And it doesn't matter how large it is because you can scale it once it's a brush. And just fill it. I'll just fill it with black. Go to Edit, define a brush, and now you have this brush with that star shape. Here I'll just click off of it, delete it. If you don't delete everything, you have to select all because it might leave a little edge right there. And now I have a brush, and I can just switch it to white, reduce the opacity, and just start to click or scale down and use the same shape. Or I can even rotate the brush so it doesn't look like it's the same, just to give it some variety to it. So here's the squashing it or stretching it and making it into that scale. I'm just putting a couple of sparkles out there so you can see it. But there you have it. You can modify that too, but there you have the final piece.